Right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to what is the first day of FII9. I'm sure you've had a terrific morning. Let's crack on with this afternoon session. If 2023 was the year AI captured the world's imagination and 24 was the year that it became a fact of life, then 2025 is the year that it is being built out at a staggering scale. According to Gartner, worldwide spending on AI expected to reach $1.5 trillion by the end of this year, fueled by what is, as we are all aware, an unprecedented surge in infrastructure investment to sustain AI compute. Today, I'm joined by the leaders shaping this AI race from every angle, from Google's investments in data and computing centers to its foundational and enterprising models, to Oracle's data and cloud muscle, to Humane's homegrown full stack, and Honeywell's industrial heft. At a moment when the sheer velocity of the industry is being met with global concerns over return on investment, and when an AI bubble is also part of this conversation, it is well worth unpacking where we are at, where this race stands, and where it is headed. I couldn't be better served with my panelists today. Tareq Amin is the CEO of Humane. Ruth Porat is the President and CEO of Alphabet and Google. Sicilia is the CEO of Oracle, and Vimal Kapur is the Chairman and CEO of Honeywell. Right, so quick fire round to you. Really only necessitates a yes or no, but feel free to spend a little longer than that if you fancy it, but no more than 30 seconds. There is a lot of talk of an AI bubble. Concerned, Tareq?
We're underestimating demand.
Got it.
No concerns. Long-term value creation is very big.
Ruth?
Very early days of implementation in the upside.
Mike?
No concerns. There'll be winners and those who don't make it, like any technology revolution, but very excited.
Got it. All right. Let's drill down. Let's start, Tareq, with you if I can, because Humane is chartering a Saudi-led end-to-end full stack data centers, cloud models, applications, and we've seen announcements here, which I want to get to a little later in this panel. I do think it's important for this audience to have you just briefly explain how this enormous and audacious project is going and what's the vision.
So Vicky and everyone, nice to be with you here today. So Humane came together through the consolidation of public and private entities. When we envisioned what the company should do, of course, maybe the easy thing I should have done, say, let's just focus on a single vertical. But nothing easy in this journey. So we took an approach. We said Humane has to focus on the entire AI total value chain. A company that builds gigawatt capacity data center, a company that has great partnerships for cloud, diversified chipset supply. We needed to really be the owners of our own foundation model and build true value realization on the AI application. It came together. It feels like I've been doing this for 10 years, but honestly, it's been only like since May 5th. We launched the company during the US President visit to Saudi Arabia. And I would tell you, I mean, you've asked me yesterday, it's been the most exciting thing to see a company like Humane stand on its feet in a relatively short time, an opportunity to even do large impact projects. The stuff we're doing with Google is a first opportunity to truly build an AI hub that is not serving only the captive demand in the kingdom, but to really achieve the objective of attracting global off-takers to take advantage of what the country has to offer. Everybody today in the world is chasing power. And Saudi Arabia has led the power through energy exports via oil. I'm optimistic that Saudi Arabia could lead the world through energy exports via tokens.
Coming back to that, stand by. Thank you for that. It does also feel to me as if you've been doing this job for a very long time. I'm not sure how much sleep you've had. That is maybe why it feels like 10 years rather than 6 months. But well done. I asked you yesterday whether this was overwhelming. You had a very good answer for me, and I'm going to come back to you on that as well. Ruth, let me bring you in here because I'm curious for your thoughts on Humane's proposition from Google's vantage point as an industry leader and hyperscaler, and for your broader thoughts on this moment of enormous global AI investment. How is Google working to ensure that this AI boom really translates to meaningful results?
It's a great question. It goes back to our very early discussions with the predecessor of Humane and Tareq and the Humane team. When we think about the upside from AI, and the reason I said it's very early, is there are 4 major opportunities for us collectively. There's advancing science, there's better delivery of social services around healthcare and education, there's fortifying cybersecurity, and there's the economic uplift. To realize that takes investment in the right kind of infrastructure to power it. It takes more than that. It also takes delivering the products and services that enable everyone in the kingdom, everyone more broadly, to actually realize both delivery of improved healthcare, education, other services, and the economic upside. And importantly, it requires training people throughout the kingdom, training people around the globe so that everyone can participate in this upside. And I think one of the things we're really proud of when we launched this is we talked about all 3 of those elements. I think of it as a triangle. You need to pull all of them together in order to not just have the infrastructure, which is obviously so core, but to ensure that you're building a society where everyone can benefit from it. And that's what we're proud of. We're pursuing each of those. There are proof points along the way. We've made announcements this week about investments in education. I was at King Saud University. We launched a healthcare platform yesterday. So it's really building the vision of what we were ruminating about quite some time ago.
The speed of this is quite phenomenal. Just before I come to you, Mike, you've been imbued in this industry now for some time. You work with people who've been deeply involved in both the internet and AI. When you talk to those who've been at the sort of frontier over what is decades now, what is ultimately more powerful, the internet or AI?
Well, I am, as you know, privileged to work with someone who's described as the father of the internet. His name is Vint Cerf, and if you Google him, that is actually what you will find. And so I went to him because who better to answer that question, I think, than the father of the internet. And his answer was that AI is more profound for all of us. And the reason I thought was so beautiful and so consistent with FII and the spirit of it, he said AI leverages human creativity and human ingenuity, and there's no limit to that. And to me, that's a beautiful place to be, and it's why when we talk about the upside from AI, it's the economic upside, but it's also the ability to better deliver for our people. The types of work we do around education that we're talking about together, as well as around healthcare, around food security, and other elements. And so that would be from the father of the internet.
You're still encouraging people to Google things, right?
Oh, yes, they are.
Mike, Oracle is a leading partner here in this region in data and cloud infrastructure, both in the kingdom, of course, and through Stargate UAE. You've also made headlines recently for your mega contracts to train OpenAI, Meta, and XAI models. What tangible impacts are you seeing from this AI push?
Well, we're actually seeing excellent impact already by combining these large language models, or in some cases, frontier models, with existing applications. So as Ruth mentioned, in healthcare, for example, we have now, for about a year and a half, had a cloud AI service available that's embedded within our electronic medical records, electronic health records, clinical applications. We've had customers report that on an average shift for a doctor, a nurse, or some provider, they've actually returned 100 minutes back to that doctor. That was time that they had to spend with the systems, time that they had to spend with obligatory documentation. And as everybody said, we're still in very early days. So I actually think that there's already dramatic impact with the AI that's, say, set to go, set to deliver. We see the same thing in the banking industry. So AI is a perfect complement to existing core banking systems to help automate financial crimes investigations, anti-money laundering investigations, all of which are very laborious processes, very manual. I think the next piece And the even more exciting piece is taking all of the existing private data, healthcare data, banking data, all of which should and will remain private data, and marrying that together with these models, whether they're traditional large language models, whether they're frontier models, and coming up with either an inferencing or retrieval augmented generation strategy where you're taking the best of these very large, high-powered models and powering them with existing private data. Then I think you get into the healthcare industry, for example, which is one that everybody can always relate to, clinical assistance, clinical diagnosis, and clinical intervention at the point of care, which traditionally would take providers quite a lot of time to research on their own time. But how do you make intervention at the point of care? You need gigawatt scale data centers, you need sovereign infrastructure, you need to get all the data in one place. And I think that all of that is very neatly coming together to have just major impact for businesses, for governments, and most importantly for humanity.
I think the sense I'm getting from all of you here is that this is still early days, because this is such a prescient conversation now, and there is so much money being invested and spent around investment. It feels like the speed is sort of clouding the fact, as it were, that we are at early days, and that's what this conversation is about. Before I move on, and I want to bring you in, Vimal, how do you respond, Mike, to concerns that these mega deals between your company, OpenAI, NVIDIA, AMD, are too circular, echoing the vendor financing of the dot-com era?
Yeah, so we're not involved in circular deals. I can only speak for my company on that. Look, I think there's real value here. I've seen the technology work. I've seen the technology work firsthand at the edge in business applications. And I can say at this point, and I don't see this changing anytime soon, the demand far outpaces the supply at this point.
Vimal, there's an untold story of the industrial sector, isn't there? And why it moves slower to transform. Can you just explain why and what Honeywell is doing to gain an edge in the competitive industrial AI space?
So the physical AI and industrial AI builds on all the work done by colleagues on this. If they don't do their work on infrastructure, core capability of AI, we won't even exist. But where the industrial world, think about a hospital, think about an airport, think about a refinery. What's different is, first is the data is hard to get. The data friction is very high because the data is captured into very older systems, the protocols are unknown, so we need to solve for that. Second challenge is domain knowledge is very unique because each of them are very different. So just data alone is not a path to find the solution. You need to know what problem to solve for. And finally, our solutions have to be what we use called deterministic, means they exactly have to work. Not almost, not 95% probability. It has to work 100%. We call it 6 nines. So when you take those 3 Ds, the data friction, the domain knowledge, and determinism, the physical AI has to tweak the infrastructure which exists in large language models to create the outcomes. But the good news is the outcomes are well known. Our customers, the economic value creation point that Ruth made, they are well defined. There are 3 problems to solve: the asset life, the operational excellence, that you run it better, economic value creation, and the skill enhancement of the people. So if we can solve the 3 Ds, if we can take care of data friction, if we have the right domain knowledge, and if you build deterministic outcome, we know what problem to solve for. And that's what excites us, that the journey here is very exciting. The value creation is real. And I see our customers feeling urgency to drive that, whether customers in Saudi Arabia or rest of the world. So I really feel excited on opportunity ahead.
I mean, that sense of urgency is no better borne out than here in the kingdom and the work that you are doing, Tareq. I mean, Saudi, and you alluded to this in your first answer, Saudi's vying to grow from handling less than, 1% of the world's AI workload to 6%. That's the goal. That would be trailing only the United States and China in terms of global leadership. I mean, you're looking to be number 3. That's the vision. You argue that Humane's competitive edge is power, AI's insatiable demand for energy that is, of course, abundant in this kingdom. I just have to ask, is that enough to get you there?
Well, I think when you're building a business, there are many ingredients to start with. I had the opportunity, of course, to do amazing things in my previous roles in Japan and India and the United States. There is one commonality you need, regardless of saying I have power or not. The first and most critical thing is the foundation of people and organization. So my surprise, I mean, I'm new to Saudi Arabia, so when I came here, my first thing that I thought I have to worry about is the talent and the depth of talent. Like any other leader in this group, it would tell you that I feel blessed. Every day I go to the office and I have researchers in my team that I learn from every day. I have executors that know how to build infrastructure. So one aspect is flawless execution and project. I think I agree with Mike. First of all, I really tell you, we are completely underestimating the demand. So the sense of urgency Humane has is around the build. 70% of my job, I feel like I'm a real estate developer, ensuring that we secure the land, power, connectivity. I utterly made public that I truly believe Saudi Arabia has a potential and opportunity to be the third largest AI infrastructure provider outside of China and the United States. If you talk to Mike and even Ruth, they will tell you very clearly, finding power is not a trivial thing. It's not like I want to build a data center and like magic, now you have a gigawatt of capacity available. So what has happened in Humane now, and I mentioned to you when we were outside, this is a phenomenal opportunity in which public and private are partnering together. Under the direction of His Royal Highness Ministry of Energy, if you go and see a picture where a collection of 16 government entities and Humane are sitting together in one room trying to find and solve for where is available power that I could tap into that doesn't need substation build out. I am motivated by time. Time is my worst enemy, so and luckily we have solved for power and we don't need to build additional capacity for the power at least up till 2030, and of course post 2030 I'm very confident our large-scale campus will be ready with the capacity that we need. So whoever gets to this path where an affordable, low-cost power, reliable, secure, and a structure for data governance, it's an ingredient that I feel could present to you as a compelling alternative for AI native companies. And then lastly, we cannot really forget the importance of partnerships, by the way. It's really, really important. So we're not doing this alone. We have a lot of support that we started with, and I mentioned the early discussion. It's been almost a year ago that we talked to Ruth and the team about this crazy idea. Yeah. It was crazy. I mean, when we started this saying, hey, what do you think about the idea of hosting non-Saudi workloads in the kingdom? I mean, just think about those early days conversation and where we are today. But I'm optimistic. I mean, I understand the job and the task in front of me. Yes, it comes with its stress, but I've done enough infrastructure build out in my life. This is now an area where we have to flawlessly execute. The business offtake, Becky, is done. Is done.
You launched Humane while Donald Trump was here, back in May. There are still export controls to a degree on some of the most important assets that you need here in the kingdom. You've diversified away from just, for example, NVIDIA chips. That's correct. Not necessarily those aren't necessarily available to you in the sort of abundance that you need. How do you describe that relationship with the US and the Trump administration very specifically? We know that the three pillars of AI there were agreements to agree for a US-Saudi partnership around these significant AI pillars. What are you hoping to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. Today, not so well known, by the way, to the world, but in fact today, Saudi Arabia is serving 150 countries from Humane Data Center, in which 5% of the traffic comes from Saudi, the rest is coming from other international market. I am obsessed about the concept of democratization of infrastructure. So we look at every possible alternative that could deliver to our customer reliable, secure, ultra-low cost inferencing. And we got approval on the export controls because our cause was easy for them to understand. And we also understand what is the US government concerns and requirement. So the process on a larger G2G discussion is ongoing. I am feeling extremely optimistic about our approach. It was extremely important for us to explain to the US government what is humane, who's our customers, how we manage tenants, how we manage security in the data center. And we've addressed in a very robust way the requirement, the partnerships with hyperscalers. Hopefully also with Mike and the team, we'll do something really meaningful with Oracle as well. But I think we have a really good solution architecture that makes it compelling for us to get the necessary approval to support the mission and the vision and the objective of what Humane wants to do.
Talk about working with Mike, and I'm going to come back to both of you. Mike, I just want to bring you in here because you are working with the UAE on the Stargate UAE project as well. When we talk about who will, who leads the race in AI, where do you see this region? I mean, Tareq wants Saudi to be number 3.
Well,
the UAE is looking at a similar sort of, scenario. What do you see as the opportunity in this region?
yeah, I think that, the kingdom is in a wonderful position, as Tareq said, to provide turnkey AI and embedded business services to the rest of the world. In many places in the world, it's not going to be practical to build or source the power quickly. And even if, keeping in mind that if you do it once, that's not enough. You have to do it twice. It has to be fully redundant, and sometimes even 3 times to make it fully deployed. So you've got, excellent process, excellent governance, world-class security, wonderful business applications, and lots of organizations that are, surrounding Humane and others to host their business applications on this infrastructure. And I think the idea of sovereignty is going to be, sovereignty doesn't necessarily mean that it has to run inside a country's borders. I think of sovereignty in this model like you think of an embassy. You would think of an embassy being here in the kingdom, which is a sovereign entity. I think we can achieve the same thing with data centers, particularly as we focus on small form factor data centers complete with robust AI infrastructure. We can deliver that to other countries at a price point that's highly attractive. And as you said, over 100 countries are certainly possible customers for that, and I think it makes tremendous sense.
Let me bring you in, Ruth, here. It was an MIT study, I think, last summer that initially sparked these fears of an AI bubble that we began this conversation with. It found at the time that 95% of businesses saw 0 return on investment from their generative AI projects. And again, early days, of course. Why do you think organizations are struggling to implement AI, and what role can Google have, for example, in bridging that gap?
I think what's fascinating about this time is when you look at the pace of science and breakthroughs, it's moving very quickly and it's breathtaking. As an example, our colleagues were awarded the Nobel Prize last year for chemistry in something called AlphaFold, which is predicting the 3D protein structure, viewed as the greatest contribution to drug discovery in our lifetime. It took them from 4 years to deciding to go after this 50-year grand challenge, to accomplishing it, to open sourcing it, to, today, 3.5 million scientists are using it around the globe to advance science, and they won the Nobel Prize. 4 years to break a 50-year grand challenge. This year, one of our colleagues won the Nobel for physics. And this was in quantum computing, and we just announced last week something stunning I've been waiting for years. I keep asking our head of quantum AI, when are we going to see something commercial? And this is the application also to health, where there's so many exciting things going on in imaging and MRs. And so we can see within 3 to 5 years, there's going to be a commercial application. That is moving at breathtaking speed. I think what's fascinating is that change management, it starts with what's the prioritization. And the mental model I keep coming back to really builds on the life science and health experiences. 1, because they're here, and 2, because they're personal to all of us. And in particular, I go back to cancer, because in America, 40% of Americans will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. It's not that different, sadly, elsewhere around the world. And if you look at the 3 buckets of applications, it provides a framework for people to think about, where do I start? And the problem is, just dabbling with a chatbot, you're not going to get the ROI dabbling with a chatbot. You have to fundamentally rethink your business. So first on innovation, I've already said it. We're seeing it in drug discovery and other elements of it with massive breakthroughs. When our colleague Demis Hassabis, who won the Nobel, was asked, how did you decide to do that? He said, well, with AI, I can take on the most intractable problems I've ever seen, which is what each one of us should be thinking about in our business. The second area in healthcare is risk management. Early detection saves lives. Early detection reduces the magnitude of the intervention. In cancer, we're seeing that with early detection of cancer. You can see the cells earlier, metastatic cancer forming earlier than otherwise. It is absolutely staggering. And when I've reflected on it, my view is that's finding the proverbial needle in the haystack. That is what all of us need to do on cybersecurity or fraud detection. It's the same thing. So you think of that as number 2. And the third one, you've already commented on. It's the operating leverage you get using AI, in particular agentic AI, where you can reduce sort of the administrative task, let nurses focus on what they want, the patient. You can free up 30% of their time. That mental model is astounding because, again, everyone in this room has that ability. And then what's exciting is when you can reduce the unit economics in your business, it unlocks innovation opportunities. The best example, the number of people are talking about here, is if you reduce unit economics in financial services and you can cover everybody with the quality that you used to be only able to cover a few, what does that do for wealth management or for asset management? It opens entirely new markets. So I think the problem we have seen is people need that mental model: innovation, risk management, operating expense, pick a lane, go hard at it, and then you'll see the upside.
Oh, you're nodding away sagely here.
Yeah, so I agree with Ruth. I think one of the things we have been, as a practitioner, wearing my other hat, how does company like us, we have 100,000 employees, how do we adopt AI? And where's ROI come on that? What lesson we learned is really go back to the basic of applying lean principles. You have to reimagine work. If you give the tool to the people, they will save some time, but that's work being performed the same way. So to me, you have to reimagine the process to say, if all these agents existed, how the workflow will happen differently. And unless the workflow is not redefined, it's a classical lean manufacturing thinking. You have to lean the work, you have to lean the process, and that's where the benefits will come.
I mean, Honeywell's long-term strategy hinges on digitally transforming industries through AI and data analytics. Your partnerships with hyperscalers are essential in unleashing that data. I just wonder what the challenges are that you are navigating in that effort to sort of build out autonomous, self-sufficient systems. I mean, yours is it's a fascinating arena.
So to me, the infrastructure availability or capability of large language model is not our limitation. So as I said, we have a lot of resources available from the providers. The challenge is to build a economic value which can be adopted at scale. And when we are able to prove that, then market adoption goes high. So what we have worked over the last 3 or 4 years is a data friction problem. We can connect any asset, industrial asset, in a day. I can connect this whole hotel in a day. So you say, why do you want to connect this? What's the real problem you're solving? You really want to know the assets here, how much money is being spent on the maintenance, how many people are there, and do we really need them? But unless you don't map it, you can't really answer the question. So increasingly, as we are deploying our capabilities, we are finding a clear use cases which a large economic value will create. And I'll give an example which many people relate to. We did deployment of our IoT platform in a quick service restaurant chain where all of us eat, 600 of them in UK. You won't imagine a quick service restaurant being an opportunity for cost reduction. You say, well, what's there to reduce? I mean, what exists there? What if you think they need to keep lights on? You have to maintain temperature. You have a kitchen. There's a lot of fryers there. You have refrigerators. So when you start adding, there's a lot of equipment. There's a lot of energy. Once we connected everything, we were able to find first thing, the kitchen equipment temperature was wrong, so your meat was not being fried at the right temperature. even though the recipe said it's a simple thing, but the customer dissatisfaction. But since we connected, the energy reduction is around 40%. Why? Because each human was running this equipment individually, and there was no oversight. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
How do you manage 600 of them spread over the country? Now we can do that, and that's economic value creation.
And I think, Mike, I want to bring you in, and then let's talk about enterprise sort of AI solutions very specifically, where you can see, I have, a need, here is a solution, and I want to talk about some of the announcements that you've made here, very specifically the Humane One announcement. Before I get to you, this barrier of these sort of broad AI tools, these generic tools, rather than sort of targeted data sets, I'm really interested in, because that's where we may see the next, or we should see the next leap. I mean, Mike, what do you see as the key barriers to AI adoption in B2B, in the B2G space? Is it what I've just sort of described? Is it regulatory pressure? Is it data sovereignty? Is it raw compute power? All of the above, or something entirely different?
Yeah, well, I think all of the above, and some of the things are probably out of the hands of a corporation. But if you think about enterprise application of AI, lots of things you can do today with large language models off the shelf. Easier to write narratives, easier to write job descriptions, should be easier to hire people and increase process. But the next big piece of this, as I mentioned earlier, is how do you take all of that enterprise data and how do you make that relevant, at the time of an action, whether it's a customer interaction, whether it's a back office interaction. And for that, I think you need a data governance strategy. So, some experience we have in working with corporations is the very first step is trying to just find, where is all the data? Where is it? How's it organized? How many different databases do you have? And how do we get all that data? And then how do we get it and vectorize it? Because if we can vectorize it, we can actually make it, we can make it applicable for inferencing, retrieval augmented generation, and all these things that need to happen. So I think just good old data governance is a very good first step as corporations and governments, for that matter, prepare themselves to take the next step, which is taking these generic models and making them very germane, very specific to the business process, the clinical process, or the government process, whatever it may be, and really, I think, get to an outcome which is not measured in just saving time, saving money, but actually changing the way you do something and actually changing outcomes. And I don't think we're that far away from that.
Right. Well, you don't think we're far away at all, because you've made some announcements here on a number of enterprise AI sort of solutions. Just talk me through a couple which are clearly pertinent to the discussion that we're having.
When we established Humane in the early days, like any other startup, we have an option. Go to legacy systems, implement processes around things that we have done for decades, or if Humane going to tell the world we really are a capable company, innovative, creates IPs, why don't we do something the world have never done? With advanced models that Google has done, OpenAI has done, I pondered why the interfaces on mobile compute has never changed. Over the last 30 years, if you go all the way to the invention of Windows in 1985, what we have done is collected icons on desktop. If you want to do something in HR, here's your icon. In finance, here's your icon. Legal, here's your icon. By the way, depending on the size of the enterprise, you'll end up with thousands of, of applications that organizations are built around it. And then we wonder why value realization is not delivered. Today at 1 o'clock, we did something the world has not done. We created the world's first AI operating system. And the interface is just voice or text. But this is not knowledge retrieval, by the way. This addresses fundamentally HR, finance, legal, deep research. And so if I want to go to vacation, why do I need to go to this icon to say submit my workflow? So what we did is a fundamental transformation on the architecture of the platform. Why that's important? We believe that as the world continues to evolve and deliver agent, a bespoke agent, one that does things for legal and finance, what is happening today, they are built as applications that are also built into their silos. Humane One integrates a marketplace where my requirement to third parties is one thing, please respect the UX. I just want the prompt to be the same. So I'd encourage everybody to see what really this architecture looks like. I am 100% convinced Whether Humane does it, Google does it, Apple does it, this is the future UX. We will get into a world where AI agents are integrated into one platform. They are directly integrated with your enterprise system processes. So today, Humane does not have any third-party products from anybody. And we build agents now that are running my business. So one specific example, value realization. Payroll before, payroll after. 11 people, consultants that were doing the job, now 0. By just declaring a statement, on the 27th of the month, I want you to run my payroll. Now, that's value realization. That's good, but I'm not doing it just for about employee reduction and such things. I needed to take my own employees and offload them from mundane tasks. If you look at complexity of HR processes, why does it take so many days to hire an employee, to vet an employee, to do performance management? We have optimized our agents to really carry these mundane tasks and make sure that our employees become product managers. My HR is no longer HR. They're product managers of HR. Their job is to tell this agent, what are the requirements that they need, but we call it Humane One because we believe you need only one IT product for your enterprise.
If I could add back to your prior question, what is it that's needed to unlock all of this? Is it energy infrastructure? I think we and others have built that infrastructure. And so really reflecting on your question, I think there's one other critical element. As innovative as Google is, we have never taken innovation for granted, and we are deliberate about it. And what I mean by that is in the earliest days of Google, we had something called the 20% project, which probably people have read about. If you had a great idea, take 20% of your time, pursue it. That turned into Google X. That turned into Alphabet and the creation of these other bets. And in 2016, Sundar Pichai, our CEO, said, we are moving from a mobile-first company to an AI-first company. It will be full stack. Chips, models, applications, research, the whole thing, so that we can better deliver for everyone. He set the North Star. Point number one, CEO needs to make it really clear we are all moving. Everything is moving in this direction. And then created something called Labs. And Labs is a wonderful group with a young superstar leader where they have scrappy teams of 6 to 10 people who come up with ideas that can go horizontally. As Tareq was saying, you have to go horizontally to really scale this. They kill things early and they promote them. And I think the organizational structure is another key part because change management is about humans. And we need to be able to bring people on the journey so they can see the upside from going on this journey.
Thank you. Can we bring up the poll that our wonderful audience QR'd on? Who will win the global AI race? US, 43%. China, 21%.
Okay.
Europe, 0%. MENA, interesting, 17%. And it can't be won. Around this floor, as we close out, we've got 60 seconds, I'm being told. Tareq, what do you make of that? What would your answer be? What would you have pressed?
Well, I would have put Europe a little bit more than 0%. So,
all right.
But look, I think in general, I really, really admire the startup ecosystem in the US. I would say US, China, and I would not discount what we're doing in the Middle East.
Mike.
Well, I think there'll be lots of winners, and I think it'll all change very rapidly. But most importantly, I think the human race is going to win because I think what we're doing here is going to have more profound impact on so many of the things that we depend on as humans. So I'm cheering for everybody in that regard.
I think adoption rates will define who will be the winner. I think we are concluding too early. Infrastructure, we are in an infrastructure stage. So who drives the adoption and multiply it, that to me will, we're kind of more or less at parity. The difference is not large outside the US. So that's my view that the adoption rates will really determine. And some regions are highly digitized already. And I think we have to take clue from that. They're likely to adopt AI faster. If you're natively not digital, you're not going to win the AI race.
Yeah, understood. Ruth? Final word.
Every head of state I meet with says, my country must be a part of the digital transformation for all the reasons we talked about. And the U.S. is very focused on engaging with our allies to unlock what that upside is. So I think the U.S. has the opportunity, because of engagement with some of these other rows, point number one. And I think I completely agree that the most important thing is the application in a substantive way. Reimagine what your business can be. Think about what our Nobel Prize winner said. Take on those things that seem to be intractable, because that's where the upside comes from. And I do think it's the unlock that we're going to be able to deliver.
I'd love to chair this same panel next year and see where we are at a year from now. I really want to see where you're at, because we can see where you've got to in, 5, 6 months. It's been fascinating. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank
the very
you.
best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you.